to a special edition here of what we're watching. Me and Jessica watched the Netflix original movie Death Note.
Death Note. Yes.
Yeah, based upon the popular manga and anime. Yeah, we watched this movie. That's that. What do you think about this movie? We have a lot of things that I could talk about in this movie. Let me hear from you first. How do you feel about this?
Um, I knew going in was going to be rough, and I was right. 100%. It was rough. It's pretty sad when the last 5 minutes of a movie is the only good point of a movie, and even then, it's not good.
I was a little more generous. I actually think the first 10 minutes of the movie weren't bad. They weren't great, but they weren't bad. It set up the basics. I went into this being a fan of Death Note. I actually went into this saying, maybe I'm going to take myself out of that. Maybe I'm going to be like fresh new eyes, fresh new content. I didn't want fresh new content. I didn't want fresh new eyes. I wanted the Death Note I loved, and
See,
I didn't. I don't like what they did with these characters. These are characters who they're near and dear to me.
I agree. And my issue as well is if they wanted to change the characters so much, they should have just introduced new characters. They shouldn't have based it off of Light Turner, even though it's supposed to be Yagami Light, and L. They should have done maybe like what happened after the Death Note and kind of played it off there. That way, us fans can go in with a whole new look of it instead of, oh, we're gonna, do these same characters yet completely change them to where I didn't care about anybody. At the end of the movie, I didn't care. I didn't care that Misa died. They didn't even explain what exactly happened to Elle. I don't understand why they made Light into this emo freaking kid who doesn't know, anything except for the last five. I mean, I just don't understand. I don't.
Yeah, that was my biggest problem with this was that Light was always maniacal and he was very cerebral.
Yes, he was
In his
very
approach.
egotistical. He was very, I mean, he had the God complex. Throughout the movie, they kept saying, like, we're not the good guys anymore, what's right, what's wrong. See, that wasn't Light. Light in the anime was like, what I'm doing is right, I am God, I am Kira, I am doing this to make world, to make peace and to do this. I mean, the entire time, he never once doubted himself. He knew what he was doing until the very end. And that's one thing that all of us Death Note lovers loved about him. And then same as L. L never lost his cool. He was smart, he was intelligent, you were like going for him, yet you were also rooting for, Yagami Light. I mean, it was a constant, you loved both characters so much, you wanted them both to succeed, but you knew that wasn't going to happen. And it was this, rat race of, who's going to win, who's going to do this. And I loved it. And so when they took that away and then made L into this, you know, crazy character where he's chasing Light with a gun and, crashing his car and, stealing a police car and crashing it. And I was like, what am I watching? Like, what is this? I don't understand.
It was way too bizarre. Not only that, they made they made like more gruesome. Like the standard Death Note is a heart attack. It's nothing over the top. All these deaths were very brutal, very horrible.
Did anybody
horrible
even,
things.
if I don't remember correctly, did anybody even die of a heart attack?
Not a single one.
See, another question to me as well is because I was actually talking to my brother about it because he's a huge Death Note fan, loves it to death, and I was like, the thing that is weird to me is why everybody knew, like, the police knew that something was up because all of these evil people were dying of a heart attack, and they're like, what is going on? What's happening? Whereas the way that Light Turner was killing these people was like horrible ways, and so I don't understand how someone could attract that back to him if everybody's dying a different way. That's just me personally though, is I just don't understand how they could have backtracked it to him so fast. I don't get it.
The way the story did it was he jumped straight into the whole the Kira thing. Tell pretty much everyone, all these major criminals were writing. This is like courtesy of
But
Kira.
see, again, that kind of bothered me though because
It did. I
because
didn't like it.
he never actually chose the name Kira. Kira was chosen for him, and he just was like, okay, cool, I'll take it. I'm Kira, and he owned up to it. But he was never vocal about. This is the part that kind of made me really upset was when he gets a death note, he kills the first person. Mia, who they should have just kept her name Misa. I don't know why they changed it.
Yeah.
Where Mia sits next to him and she's like, I wish I would have seen that. And he's like, oh, well, guess what? I have a death note. And then, I mean, why would you just openly show somebody that? I don't understand. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't even show why she's so into it and why she's like, yes, let's go kill people and let's have sex and then kill people. I mean, I don't understand. It made no sense to me. I was like, why do you want to kill people? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, the best character in the whole movie was Light's father. Like, he was the only person who was
right?
even relatable or, like, any bit of humanity.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. Like, Ryuk, I thought Ryuk was going to be a great character. I was like, you know what? Willem Dafoe's playing him. He's going to be fantastic. I don't like the way they portrayed him. I don't like it. I didn't like it. I like that Ryuk, you know, the original, in the anime, he was like, I'm not for you. I'm not for them. I'm just here for the ride. You know, he never pushed Light to kill anybody. He never was like, he never told Light, he never questioned Light. He never was like, oh, I don't think you can do this. Why don't you, you know, give up the death note and I'll find another person? Because he said it more than once. And I'm like, obviously he doesn't even care about this dude. Like, I mean, he never actually cared, but I mean, obviously he didn't even think that Light could do it. And in reality, you know, the entire time he's like, humans are so interesting. Like, you're the first person who's ever killed so many people in such a short amount of time and have no remorse. And that's what I liked.
And, you know, like, from the manga, from the anime, Light was very much about the rules. You know, he was like, how far can I go into bending these rules? They never really explored that in here. The only thing they even really went into was the 2-day mind control kind of thing.
Correct. And, I mean, again, I am strongly that they shouldn't have tried to follow the whole Light, Yagami, and the, you know, L storyline, because there was just so much that they couldn't push into an hour and 40 minutes. There's no way. You know, just like how some of the rules weren't even originally written in the Death Note, where he wrote them in himself to then, you know, try to make it seem like he wasn't Kira. I mean, there's so much things that he did. Same as, like, you know, where he would try to work around it, and he even used some of the people as bait to see how far he can push the Death Note, you know, where he was like, you know, this person's in Japan, I want you to go to Paris and jump off the after. They couldn't do it. And yeah. I like that he actually was, I mean, again, they should not have followed these characters. They should not have. It would have been so much better if they didn't.
It really, you know, if it's a complete change of venue, you could have really just, this could have been the continuation. This could have been what happens after, and I would have been fine with it.
They really should have. I mean, they should have said, you know, like, they should have started off like, you know, what's the world going to be with, like, without Kira, and, you know, kind of you know, go forward and see what happens, and all of a sudden, you know, Ryuk's like, hey, I'm coming back again, and that's what should have happened. In reality, that's what should have happened, and it didn't, because in all actuality, if you watch the movie, it's just a movie. It wasn't horrible, but when you watch the anime, it's horrible. I mean, because, like, but to me, though, even if I didn't watch the anime, I wouldn't have actually watched it again. Because to me, I had no connection with the characters, no matter what, because they were trying to push so many things so fast that, nothing happened. You know, like I said, it never explained, like, why she was the way she is. It never explained why she would try to, you know, go against Light and, you know, try to kill him to get the death. It never explained that. I'm like, why would you try to kill him? I don't understand. Are you? I mean, to me, she was more Light than Light was Light.
Yeah, she came across though as just like a bored teenager. Like, oh, this is the fun thing to do. Like,
yeah, she just seemed like a bored. Yeah, like, oh, I'm bored. Let's go kill some people. Like, okay, cool. I don't understand. Like I said, Ryuk, they ruined him. You know, his voice was great. Willem Dafoe did great for the, you know, few seconds that he was on the TV. But even then, like I said, they ruined him because he was such a pusher, and they made him so dark, and he wasn't dark. He was actually pretty humorous, and he was goofy, and, you know, he's like, I want my apples. And, I mean, there were times where he would do things just to get apple. I mean, but that's where the humor came in, not this, like, oh, you have long fingers. Like, okay, like, was that really necessary to say? Like,
yeah. And there were lots of little things that I was hoping to hear. We never once heard the word Shinigami.
Never once.
Not so much as once. No mention of the Shinigami eyes, which is something I thought that would have been cool to explore. But
yes,
it's an hour 40 minutes. Probably need to go into that.
But again, like I said, they try to squeeze so much in. I mean, even if they made it 2 hours, they could have done a lot more with that extra 20 minutes. They really could have. And another issue that I have is kind of like what you just said with the whole like Shinigami eyes is, well, actually it has nothing, but the part that really upset me also was that Light was so in love with Mia, because
Yeah.
he never was. And in the end, he
Well,
was like, "If you love me, no." Because if it was actually Light, he'd be like, "You know what? Screw you. I'm gonna push you off myself. Like, okay, bye." Which then, at the last 5 minutes, you kind of realize, like, oh my gosh, he really did kill her. Like, that's really what happened to save himself, which is exactly what Light would have done. But why would you waste that to the last 5 minutes? I don't understand that. I
I
don't
mean,
understand.
like I said, yeah, the first 5-10 minutes, the last 5 minutes is really all you need to see in this movie. You had messaged me on Twitter. You're like, if I could give negative stars, I would.
It's
Um,
I mean, I just, it was one of those movies where like I'm watching it and I can't. And I saw a few reviews that are like, oh my gosh, I don't remember what his name is, but the guy who played L, they're like, he's sitting just like him and he's eating candy. I'm like, well, actually, L never really ate candy. He ate cakes and stuff. He liked Japanese pastries. He liked English pastries. I was like, but hey, you know what? Because I eat a jelly bean, I guess I'm L. But that's just me. I mean,
yeah, I mean, the little thing that really bugged me, and it's so pedantic, so shallow. No one dramatically ate a potato chip so much as once in the
yes,
movie.
yes. That's exactly, actually, that's what I was gonna say, and then I forgot. Because to me, that was the game changer of the entire anime, and I'm sure to a lot of people, including you, and that was the game changer because everybody was watching him, and he even said, "Guess what? You are the person who's watching me now, and guess what? You're my alibi." Because you were watching me the entire night, when in reality, he was actually killing people using the potato chips. And that was such a strong point because, again, he was like, I'm going to spend $200 on this freaking mini TV, put it in my bag of potato chips, still kill people, crumple it up and throw it away like it's nothing. I mean, because that's just how crazy he was. And that's what you loved about him. Instead of this guy who, oh, just because he does people's homework, he's automatically smart. And, just because, you know, his storyline too wasn't even the god complex. His storyline was, my mom was wrongfully convicted because she was murdered and I don't agree with it, so I'm going to kill a bunch of other people because other people shouldn't have to deal with that. Like,
Yeah, it was.
no
It
wonder
was
why
like
your justice failed, because like, what was that?
a revenge story. You nailed it on the head. The God complex never came in, and that was such a big part of Death Note.
That was Death Note. Was the whole god complex.
That's the reason we watched it. Was we're watching God.
Yeah, I mean,
People.
and that's what I'm saying. Like, he never once questioned himself. Whereas in the end, Light's like, give it up. Let's not do this. Like, we're caught. We're already too far into the... He would have never done that. I mean, even in the anime until the very end, he still, to his last breath, was fighting as Kira. And again, that's what I mean, that was like an intense death. That was like, holy crap, that was amazing. Like, you actually felt for Light. You were like, oh my gosh. And I actually want to mention as well is I've actually seen the live action of Death Note that was made through Japan. I watched it, and I actually watched it because I originally, when I saw the trailer to, this Death Note, I was like, I really want to talk about it because I'm so passionate. I mean, I love anime. I love Death Note. That's actually one of the first animes that got me into animations. And so I was like, you know what? I feel like I can't really watch it without seeing what a Japanese version would have done. And they followed the story so greatly, yet they changed little things that to me made it different enough to where, you weren't just watching about, play by play of what the anime was, but it still left you happy and it still answered all your questions and you still had that connection with every single person. The acting was great. The guy who played L, I feel like was as good as L can get as a live person. And so, I mean, if you watch this, I recommend you watch the live action that like Japanese did, which Crunchyroll has it and all that stuff. So, but that also made me look at this movie in a completely different way because I'm like, why couldn't you just do what they did? Like, they still kept it the same. The characters were exactly who they were supposed to be. They didn't change anything like that, except for they might have changed a few things here and there.
Yeah, because I'll give it a shot because anything will be better than what we watched. If you had to give it a grade,
yeah, and I mean,
out of 1 of 100, 1 being the worst movie you've ever seen, 100 probably being The Godfather. Where would you rate this one?
I'd probably give it like a 25-30.
Jessica's being generous, okay? Because honestly, this is pretty close to the bottom for me. I would put it somewhere around a 10 to 15, to be quite honest.
I'm aiming more for like a 25. It just because again it didn't make my eyes bleed as much as it was going to. But as myself, like I said, I don't like it, but I know like my brother and that kind of stuff, they were like, you know what, if you watch this not in a Death Note aspect, it's really good. But I'm like, but why would you watch it in a non-Death Note aspect if it's about Death Note? Especially when they're doing the same exact characters. And I try to explain to my mom, like, if it was Harry Potter, I said, how would you feel if, you know, someone wanted to make Harry Potter and, you know, they wanted to remake it and make it new. So instead they asked this, you know, big, huge dude, you know, who doesn't know how to do magic and completely changes his character to where, you know, or even Hermione. I said, what would you do if they got a Hermione who was very like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. Like, whereas Hermione is a strong character. So it's like when you try to change a strong character, it changes the entire aspect of what you're watching. You just can't do it. Because again, you're not going to feel connected because you're like, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, this is wrong. Why are you scared to fix his glasses? Or why are you scared to take on this there's just so many things wrong with this. Many things.
It felt like we didn't watch Death Note, but you mentioned a good point during there. You said you had your mother watch this. So someone who is outside of the realm of watching Death Note.
Yes, I did, because like I said, when I'm watching it, my blood is boiling. I'm pretty sure if you have me on Twitter, or I mean, I know you do, I was going a little Twitter happy on this one because I was kind of happy that I wasn't the only one who was disgusted by what I watched because it was horrible. I mean, like I said, I wish I can give it negative stars because it doesn't even deserve 1 star. Like, that's generous.
It's bad. It's really bad.
Like, I went on every single, like, I went on my iPad, I went on my phone, I went on my computer, and I did thumbs down on every single one because I felt like 1 thumbs down wasn't enough. Like, I was not happy. And as you said, I did ask my mom, and I actually, like, gave her an interview because I wanted to see if this was a bad movie because of the fact that it's just a bad movie, or if it's a bad movie because they just portrayed who the main characters were so bad. So when I asked my mom, I said, I said, without seeing the anime, did the movie make sense to you? Because I feel when I was watching it, I was like, if I didn't see the anime, a lot of this stuff wouldn't have made sense. At least, because, again, they rush so many things, like, for example, the orphanage. They were so fast in the orphanage, and he's like, I need Elle's name. And then he just dropped it like cold turkey, and that was it. I was like, then why even add that into the movie? Why kill Watari to get his name when you didn't, like, I don't understand. Like, and that's, I don't understand. Like, it was a worthless death.
Was the name ever spoken or no? I don't think it was.
No, it wasn't, because he died right before then.
Okay.
Because Mia killed him.
That's right, okay.
So I was like, I can't even. That made no sense to me.
The fact that I had to keep listening to her being called Mia too, that pissed me off. But
I'm like, why would you? I mean, Misa is an American. It can be an American name, so I don't know why they took the S out. Misa would have been fine. But they left Light. I was like, I've never once met anyone named Light, but okay. I asked her who her favorite and least favorite characters were, and she said Light and Ryuk were her favorites. She liked that Ryuk was funny and that she felt more connected to Light in a human aspect because he was constantly pulling in between right and wrong, and he wasn't sure what he was doing, and I was like, that's all great and everything, but that's not Light. So yeah. And then I also asked, I said, did watching the movie make you interested in wanting to watch the anime? And she said yes, and I told her, you probably should, because then you're going to hate the movie. I asked her what she would rate the movie between 1 and 10, and she said she gave it a 6.5. She said it was good, allowed action. She said to her it also felt like it had kind of like a Final Destination feel to it, with the whole like decapitations and that kind of stuff. And I was like, that's great, but that's not Death Note. I said, what was your favorite and least favorite part of the movie? She says, I don't know what my favorite part was. She said, but my least favorite part was when they killed Watari. She said, I don't understand why they killed him.
And neither do I.
And then afterwards, because every time I watch anime, I always call my mom and crap happens because I have no friends. So I was like, I always call my mom for everything when I'm freaking out. And I told her, I said, well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to explain to you what the anime was originally about, and I'm going to describe to you who the characters were, and then I want you to tell me if just by hearing this, if you feel like they portray the characters correctly, and if you think that they did them justice. And when I did, she said absolutely not, they did not do them justice. And that's as somebody who has never seen any anime except for Avatar. So, and she watched it because I made her, because again, I wanted somebody who's never seen the animation to, because again, I already know what I don't like, so.
Yeah, so there's rumors abound that they're going to possibly do the American version of Attack on Titan.
They just need to. I feel like this should have been a red flag. Don't do it. Please don't do it. Don't, because it's going to be a waste of your money. Don't do it, please, for the love. Just don't.
Just stop taking the things that I love and turning them into movies, because
didn't you learn your lesson from Dragon Ball Z or from this? Like,
you're actually, that's what I was gonna say. I'm someone who suffered Dragon Ball Evolution.
That was horrible.
For me, Dragon Ball is my all-time favorite anime. Dragon Ball, the original Dragon Ball, not even Z, just Dragon Ball.
See, I like Dragon Ball Z.
Well, I love the whole series all the way through, but Dragon Ball, first of all, they did Dragon Ball without Krillin, which made no sense.
Yeah.
They messed that movie up 8 ways from Sunday. But back to this movie. It had the potential. They could have did it right.
They could have, yeah.
The director says, I want to take these characters in a different direction. Again, you can do that, but the direction he took them was so far off from the actual source that, like you said, this should have been a continuation, or this could have been the prequel to. They could have done so many things with this, because
It was rough, and
it's rough.
To me, also, and I'm sure a few other fans would agree, was that it felt kind of like an insult, because it felt to me like he's not a Death Note fan, because no Death Note fan would have been okay with the way that this movie was going. No one, because even you can take something and change, you can take a character and change their direction without changing that character. Because again, I like live actions. I'm one of the very few who actually enjoy live actions. Again, they have to be either Korean or they have to be Japanese, because I've tried to watch other ones and I couldn't do it. But live actions to me are actually pretty good. And again, I've actually seen, it's a completely different version, because I like romance animes, and there's an anime called Ida Kiss. And I've seen the Japanese version and the Korean version. Both were completely different, yet the same, if that makes sense. Whereas they still followed the same storyline. Every single character was still the same, to where even though I was watching 2 different versions of it, I knew exactly who the characters were portraying. And I was automatically connected to them because I knew who they were, with no questions asked. I mean, within the first second that they talked, I was like, all right, I know who this is. I know that's the mom. I know. And again, but even with that, they changed their route of how they, were, developing their love and their stories, and, certain dates that they did. They changed their dynamics, yet you were still happy, because again, they didn't change who the characters were. And they kept the important parts in to where you were still satisfied, because you're like, you know what? You still kept this part in. So I'm glad that this is good. Like the potato chip scene. Seriously, the most important part of the entire anime, you're going to leave that out. And I mean, and again, sometimes animes are over dramatic. So I understand where, like I said, when I watched the Death Note live version, there were points where they did change things to make things more realistic, because obviously, they're not going to blow up a building and this person's going to miraculously, survive with a burn on their face. I mean, there were certain things that were going to happen that you're like, okay, but again, you were still satisfied. And I don't understand why people were upset about it, because to me, it was the best live action you could possibly do.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things this is where we're spoiled. I was about 45 minutes into the movie, and I paused it. I'm like, how much longer do I have to go? When I saw that it was a 45-minute mark, I'm like, oh my god, I have about an hour left of this movie. And I did it again, maybe 15 minutes later. It felt like so much time had dragged on. It was just so bad. It was a chore to watch this movie.
It was, because it was slow. It was never fast-paced, even when it was fast-paced, at least in my opinion. Like the chase scene, or when he comes in and, Elle, again, you're a very calm, collective person. Like, even when you died, you were still calm and collective, and you used that death to bring justice. And that was your whole thing, was I'm here for justice. This is justice. Like, I feel like they try to introduce a backstory to Elle, like he's an orphan, he's the best, detective there ever is, but that was it. There was no following. There was nothing. Yet, he's the best detective, and yet he's losing his cool because Watari passed away, or because he can't find him, or because, none of that would have happened. None of that.
He didn't come across as a great detective. He came across as a wacky eccentric.
He did, and
that really angered me, because he's a great detective in Death Note. He's a mastermind. Whereas this whole vision of L was, hey, I'm wacky, I'm a ninja, I'm a what I get, yeah, he covered his face because he made the connection, but it was so over the top.
Now let me ask you this, because I'll now tell you my personal opinion, but towards the end, did you feel like Light was the bad guy or L was the bad guy?
I felt like L was the bad guy.
I did too, because especially when the dad, attacked him and was like, "Get away from my son," and this, Light's like, "Oh," that would have never happened, because guess what? In the anime and the live version, they suspected him towards the end, because they're like, "Wait a second, you're right. Like, what is going on?" They even imprisoned him for over a month because they didn't, and killings were still happening, and yet he let L do whatever he needed to do to prove that his son was innocent. And to me, like I said, towards the end, I got upset because I'm like, why are these people attacking L? And like, I don't understand. And I don't like that L was also so vocal, and I don't like how he was, up and like when he did the press conference. I didn't like that, because he wouldn't have done that. There's no way. I mean, even if they still did the press conference, just like, again, in the anime, and even in the live version, he used a bait to then kill, to say, okay, well, just so you know, I only broadcasted this in your town. You're screwed. I caught you. You're here. That, again, was a defining moment, because that's how he then narrowed it down to this town of which it happened, because it never explained why he just all of a sudden went to that exact town. He just said, he just was like, you know what, this isn't happening in Japan. Why did they pick the name Kira? He comes in, he's like, I don't, and also, what, not trying to sound...
He narrowed it down to Seattle. Now it's a Seattle.
But yeah, it's the exact town that he's in. Like,
Sure, you narrowed down to Seattle. Okay, Seattle's not a small city. Okay, Seattle doesn't have one police department.
That's what I'm saying.
Seattle has multiple police departments. There's multiple areas. They made it seem like Seattle is just your normal little town in America where everybody knows your name. So it was nice and quick and easy. It was. They didn't delve into it. They didn't think. If you really wanted to play it, you're smart. You use the whole computer error. Oh, this originated from this precinct, but
yes,
even the school is like Seattle High School. Like, really? Come on, man.
They don't want to interfere with the town or anything. And again, the press conference again wasn't the issue. It was that he did it himself, because again, it would have. That you could have kept that scene, but again, could have gotten someone who was bait and said, "I'm L, kill me now. Here's my name," because again, that would have explained so much more as to because again, and I was trying to explain it to my mom, because she's like, "Oh no, it makes sense." I said, "How does that make sense?" I said, "So I'm a detective in Japan, which I don't understand why they made Watari Asian but not L, but okay." Even though they came from Japan, I don't.
That's a whole other thing in general. They whitewash the cast. Let's just call a spade a spade. Let's address the elephant in the room. They whitewashed the cast. The only Asians were dead Asians. The Nakamura family, which were actually introduced by Masaoka, who actually played Hiro Nakamura in Heroes. But how stupid was that? Really, it was.
I agree, because like I said, I thought that they were going to keep L, who was already in Seattle. I thought they were going to do that. Well, then when they introduced him and he was in Japan, and Watari comes out and he's Asian, I'm like, why couldn't they just at that point pick an Asian to then bring him here, even if they kept Light white? But I was like, that to me, that just makes no sense. Now, the guy who played L, he wasn't as bad as I thought he was going to be, but he wasn't good.
No.
Again, you can't just sit in a chair with your, with your knees to your chest and eat some candy and think that you're L, because you're not.
No,
you can't.
These are just bizarre bastardizations of good characters, and I didn't like it one bit.
I actually read an interview.
Like I said, the only person I liked was Light Sad.
Yeah,
and that's bad. That's bad, but that's the only character in this whole movie that I actually gave a damn about.
Yeah, and again, it just I felt no connection to to anybody. Not even Watari. I didn't care that he died, even though I loved Watari. Like, and I mean, let's just also address that there was no Mello, there is no Nier, there was no Rem, and there is no Toru Mikami. And if you're unsure who Toru Mikami was, he was actually like L's. I guess you can say he was like the Mello to L. Like he was his
counterpoint.
Exactly. He used him as bait. He was like, you're gonna do my killing while I'm here, so that way, Again, they left the most important characters out. I mean, they could have gone out with, without the Toru Mikami, but to leave out Mello and Nier and Ren, I mean, it makes no sense. Especially, let's talk about the ending really fast, because I feel like they left things to where they could possibly do a part 2.
Oh, they did, absolutely.
Should they do a part 2? Absolutely not. Please don't. Please, save your money. Save my time. Do not do a part 2. Just don't. Because
use that money to do the Sailor Moon live action adaptation.
Use that money to to retire. Don't make any more animation movies. Please don't. Now, the part that kind of made me question was, did you notice that they never explained exactly what L did when he got the paper from the Death Note?
He had a pen in his hand, so is he writing light? We don't know. Exactly, so that it definitely opened it up.
Now, my question is, if they decided to do a part 2, what would they do? Because Mia is dead, Light confessed, and so are they going to make L the new Kira? But if they do, please don't. That would be horrible.
If they do, everything gets pinned on him now, because he's the focal point of things. He's the only other person really attached to this. So
yeah, because
he's shooting himself in the foot.
Because I mean, if they at least would have introduced maybe like Mello in the end, to where Mello comes in, like say they left it to where L was about to write someone's name, Yagami, Light Turner's name in there, and then say this random person comes out who happens to be Mello, and he calms him down. He's like, hey, we're about justice. We don't do this. Split second, boom. Because at that point, it would have left it open. Because then you could have been like, you know what? At least there's somebody else there. So even if they decided to do the stupidity turn of turning L into this, the new Kira, at least they could have changed it to where maybe there was a Mello and an L going to... But again, don't do it. Please don't. And another conspiracy that I actually thought about the split second that it happened was, I wonder... and I'm probably wrong, is if L actually did write on that paper for Yagami Turner to confess before his death. Because otherwise, why would he just automatically confess all of a sudden? Like, his dad's like, okay, what happened? He's like, do you really want to know? And then just blows out and tells him everything. Why else? Why would you do that? I don't...
Yeah, exactly. Something had to happen there.
I agree. I think something happened, because... I don't understand how else.
I really wish that he got L's name, because then it could have pulled into the whole, well, then L writes on the paper, I confess, and then he dies. And that would have been cool, but...
Yeah. I mean, again, there were so many things that they could have done, and it infuriates me that they just didn't think about it. Like, again, they could have just done completely different characters. They could have kept Ryuk. He could have gone back down, found a new owner. Or even they could say, he could say, the previous owner wanted me to give this to you because he's been watching you and your walk towards justice. Here you go. And that could have been like the very last, like, here I am, Yagami Light, passing the torch onto this next person. Let's see what their story is. Because then at that point you could still bring in Mello, because Mello's going to be like, oh crap, now it's happening in Seattle. I got to go to Seattle. That would have made sense. And, they could have still kept a few aspects, but I don't know. I feel like maybe I should make my own Death Note movie, because I feel like it'd be 100 times better than what this one was. But then I don't. But then again, it's like, you know what? I know that no one else wants a Death Note movie, because they could have done a lot, or they could have just done it simply like the story of the Shinigami. They could have done a movie about Ryuk, his story. They could have. Because, I mean, manga-wise...
Don't give them any ideas. Please don't give them ideas.
If I do, they're going to butcher it. Patent pending. But, I mean, because it's true. Like, I've read some of the mangas and stuff of Death Note, because I was very curious as to what happened to, Yagami Light after he died, because of course he can't go to heaven, he can't go to hell. So I'm like, okay, well, what happened? And then I started reading conspiracy theories, and they're like, well, in the mangas, it actually shows a Shinigami who's the new king, king there, and he walks up to Ryuk with an apple, and he's like, tell me about the human world. And for some reason, he's just extremely interested in the human world. So when I read conspiracies, they actually were saying that they think that when, people who use the Death Note die, since they can't go to heaven nor hell, they become Shinigamis themselves. And then they continue, because they say that the Shinigami is a dying breed. So, of course, all these people are just maybe not wanting to kill each other or something. So, again, they could have done a lot. And
yeah. There's so many things they could have done, and unfortunately, they didn't. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything else you wanted to say about this horrible movie that we had to watch?
Please don't make another horrible movie. Please. Again, if you've never seen Death Note, you might possibly actually like this movie. But as a fan who has seen Death Note, you'll be very, very, very disappointed. Unless you just didn't like the anime and you want to watch Death Note anyways, because it was bad. It was bad.
Guys, just watch the anime. It's on Netflix as well.
Or the live action. One or the other. Definitely the anime, though.
All right, guys, with that, we're going to say goodbye. And
bye. Thanks for tuning in.